Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Outdoor Talk. I'm Jared Tuck. I'm back on this episode again. I figured that we should introduce ourselves formally in the podcast now because I realized we get 4 views on all these videos. So I figured it would just be good to introduce myself. I'm Jared. I'll be linked down below. I do a lot of fishing stuff, but yeah.
Well, I'm Hunter. What's up, guys? I edit a lot. That's what I do. I do a lot of editing. Otherwise,
what's up, guys? I'm the real success story of this channel.
Success story.
I'm Elliot, by the way.
80 subs in 20 days.
And the only one with a real job out of 3 of us.
Yeah. I'm the one funding everything. No, just
False.
kidding. That's Hunter. That's Hunter. Hunter's funding everything.
I run all the ads. Thank you.
He does all the editing.
That's right.
I just look pretty.
We're just the stars.
Manager Hunter.
Manager Hunter. Hunter's like, I have a sad life already, and this is just for fun.
But this is another episode of the Outdoor Talk podcast. As always, we keep bringing it to you guys.
Every
Tuesday, 7 p.m. Make sure to check back next Tuesday. So, basically, Jared's with us once again.
What is up, guys?
Why are you talking so slow? You're like, is it the feedback? It's definitely the feedback.
The feedback hurts a little bit. That's why I took one earphone out. But anyways, Jared's with us, and he told us that he had the topics laid out for the day. So
that's not true.
So Jared, what do you got? What are we getting into tonight?
What's our first
smackaroonie
dooney?
So right now in Virginia, it is from where we're from, it's muzzleloader season, and so I figured that it would be appropriate to talk about hunting, just to try to keep this podcast to hunting only, and just focus on hunting, deer hunting in specific. But I saw something, I was trying to find some topics online, and I saw something about hunting over bait. And I just thought we could talk about that maybe, or in Virginia you can't do it. But I know in a lot of states you can, right? Or, I don't know that, but I've heard that.
No, all I'm saying is if you watch the Outdoor TV channel.
Yeah.
And you ever see one where they're in Kansas and there's 48 in a field and they're all 15 pointers? There's a few feeders in that field. They even show
or a farm, yeah.
Yeah, or just a bunch of soybeans.
It's not illegal to hunt over a food plot.
No, we can plant soybeans all we want and hunt over it.
Right, you can hunt over a food plot, but you can't throw corn out or put a salt block out and just hunt right over top of it and wait for the deer to come. Right. But I just thought I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about not really our views, but just I guess why it's a good thing to hunt over bait and why it's a bad thing to hunt over bait, or why should you be able to and why shouldn't you be able to? If states are conflicted on this issue, then it seems like a good thing to talk about. And I guess somebody's got an opinion on it apparently.
I feel like we've already done a podcast about this. Have we done this one before?
No, we talked about cheating in a podcast before. But we were more go to a stocked pond, or you go to a guaranteed hunt, or there's that place in West Virginia that my sister went, where it was 600 acres fenced in and they had 30 different species. We talked about that. We didn't talk about specifically hunting.
Where you go, that place where it's a zoo and you just go...
No, it's not an actual zoo.
You go stab an elk for $500 or something?
No.
It's
It's 1,000.
Yeah.
Red stag's only $8,000. Bison's only $4,000.
Wow.
But what do you? Since you brought it up,
yeah,
Mr.
Jared,
Tuck,
Mr.
should you hunt
Lawyer.
over bait? Is Virginia wrong or is Kansas wrong? This is a disclaimer. We do not know if Kansas does or does not allow feeding. It's just an example in this.
It's an exaggerated example.
Yes.
I was doing some research whenever we were doing all of the we were putting out food for deer and stuff. I was trying to figure out how big of a difference it made on deer genetics and whether or not like feeding the deer a crap ton is actually gonna like make them grow huge horns and whatnot. But some of the articles I read were like, don't feed your deer at all. And I was like, wait, what? Like, it seems like if you would want deer to come to your area, the best way to do that is to like, put some bait out. But this was like back in before September 1st when it was legal to put bait out in Virginia, because we wanted the deer to be able to like get used to coming to the area and just to see what kind of deer we had around the areas and stuff. But I was doing some research and it was like, some people were like, yeah, like, don't mess with the deer. Like, they're wild animals. Let them do what they want to do. And then, like, they're going to get big on their own anyway. So,
well, okay, hold on a second. That doesn't really sound like putting out corn is bad in the aspect of it's bad for the deer. It sounds like somebody was just wanting you to leave wildlife
The way it is.
Yeah, it doesn't really. That didn't sound like it was actual like a deer.
Actually, I believe I read something. So I read that in an article, but also I was looking at it on the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries website, and one of the things that VDGIF says, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up, but one of the things they say is just don't feed deer. Like, it's not a good idea, and then it like lists all the reasons why, and I'm like, all right, well that makes sense, but.
See, I've never read anything where it says don't feed deer. I've read a ton of stuff where it's like don't feed bears, and
Well, yeah, that's illegal.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know, but I'm just saying, like, I've read that, but I haven't read anything that's been like don't feed deer.
But I think it's also like a overall problem. It's not like each deer is gonna suffer when you feed it. It's like their bodies aren't really made for that. Like, they're made to be wild animals, and if every single deer became dependent on corn, like, eventually we'd be in a predicament. Like if you only fed humans, right?
Okay,
but they don't want to get to that point.
Here's and I quote on all this. This is VDGIF website here. Problems with feeding deer. Feeding deer can unnaturally increase deer populations and damage natural habitats, increase the likelihood for disease transmission, increase human-deer conflicts such as deer-vehicle collisions, and diminish the wild nature of deer. Fed deer are often emboldened to seek human foods, leading them into conflict with people. Feeding deer leads to the prolonged crowding of animals in a small area, resulting in more direct animal-to-animal contact, contamination of feeding sites, and greater risk of disease transmission. Because, I mean, like, ultimately when people are feeding deer, or hunters are feeding deer in the off-season, I guess you would say, the purpose is, like, it's for the deer. And so this is just kind of like questioning everything. It feels like, it's like, well, if this is just going to make them more prone to disease. I mean, I don't know what they base that on. They don't, have any sources here or anything. But that's just something they put on their website, basically, is don't feed deer. Now it's illegal to, so you can't do it.
Yeah, regardless.
But this is just saying, like, in general. And it makes you question, just, is it... I'm sorry, what?
What?
Keep going.
What'd you say?
I love you.
Wait, what? But yeah, I mean, it just makes you question, like, whether or not it's even worth it to feed them in the first place. Because if they're just going to get diseased by feeding them, then ultimately you're just hurting yourself by feeding them,
All right, well...
But going off of what this says.
I guess something it definitely makes some really good points. But I guess something to think about is hunters usually feed deer to get them in a location. They don't really... What I have, like, from what people tell me, we don't feed deer in the off season.
We tried this year for the first time.
We tried this year for the first time. But for people that have fed deer in the off season, they usually feed deer to bring them in and to keep them in a spot, So
Yeah.
I don't really feel like they're feeding them to bulk deer up. I feel like that's a little different.
Well,
But-
even if you're not feeding them to bulk them up, like this would still be saying the same thing,
No,
right?
I
like,
understand. I'm getting to it. I think that it's probably right that if you just feed deer, it's probably a bad thing. There's definitely good ways to go about it, and there's definitely bad ways to go about it. So I think there's definitely a correct way to feed deer and a correct way to bring them in, because there's like tons of science behind like all these big massive like deer farms. You know, they put tons of money into growing deer. I mean, they're not going to feed deer if it's bad for deer, you know?
yeah.
I mean, think of these places like in Texas and Ohio that make their money off of selling hunts for massive deer, and they feed their deer. So and the way they feed their deer might be like an incredibly specific, like timed feeding. They make sure they spread it over acres and acres of like land. It might be crazy, and then we see it and we're just like, oh, they just dump a bunch of corn in a field.
Right, and that's not what they do at all.
And that's not what they do at all. So I think that the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, they're discouraging feeding deer incorrectly, I would have to get. I don't know for sure, but that's how I would interpret it.
Yeah, that would make sense because, like, they're looking at it as more of, like, a person doing it. I mean, from everything we've talked about so far, that's what it seems to me. Because
I think so.
An individual random person that goes out and might feed deer, like you said, we just see dump corn out in a pile where our tree stand is. But like you said, that's in these places where it's literally somebody's job to grow and take care of a deer farm day in and day out for a year, like the whole year. That's their exact job. They do it a little differently than.
There's definitely a science to it.
Right. So from that perspective, it would make sense, like, why they don't want people to do it, because if you're uneducated on something, like, the chances that you do mess up or ruin it, I mean, are a lot greater.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I found another article here. Let's see if I can pull it up, but...
Jared just flaming on the facts right now.
No, I just thought that was interesting because, like, that's interesting, but what's more interesting is that our state government didn't even cite a source to back any of that up. So it's like, here's what we think, but, you know, should you believe it? I don't know.
Is there nothing at the bottom of the website? That's
No.
how I get all my sources. We've completely diverged from the topic we started at, by the way.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, we kind of have. We were going to talk about how we feel about feeding deer.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
No, we were going to talk about feeding deer during hunting season.
Well, we're getting there.
Okay.
After Jared looks up his facts.
Sorry.
You know, he said he was ready for the podcast.
This was an
pre-planned and had topics, but...
No, I didn't pre-plan this and have topics. Listen, they told me like an hour ago that we were doing a podcast, and I was like, okay, I'll try to come up with something.
You
And
did not say it like that.
No,
that is
not
not
at
how
all.
that went at all.
No, do not listen to him whatsoever.
basically 2 minutes before this happened, it was like, yeah, I got it.
Also,
Don't worry, boys.
quick
We got
plug,
it.
while Jared's looking up random facts for who knows what reason, that probably... Yeah, you know Jared. If you want one of these crispy wristbands until the end of 2019, DM one of us, and all you have to say is aloe vera. That's all you need to say.
We'll get your information. We'll give you one. We have yet to have anybody. Have you had anybody?
No, we had the one dude that commented on Jared's stuff, but he never reached out to us. So, I know, but we will be giving them out. So.
Oh, this is good. This is good. So this is an outdated article, but it's from 2005.
So it's completely bad.
No. It's outdated, but like it's still relevant in my opinion. I just read like a little bit of it,
Your
but
opinion's
it's
actually not important because you're
you're
not a
talking about
biologist.
So it's from the Roanoke Times, and it says feeding deer a major issue in Virginia. And then basically the first question is like, should you be allowed to feed deer in Virginia? And the biologists from the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries say no, you shouldn't. We're terribly concerned about feeding as it concentrates deer abnormally, says chief of the DGIF Wildlife Division. And then it goes on and it has an opinion from a hunter, and it says, this is a crock of you know what. Robert Coe Jr., reaction to the feeding proposal. Some of us hunt small property that has no forage for deer, and without feeding to train them to come our way, we would never see a deer, said the Newport News hunter. Is that true or not? Do you think that if you have a small property, you are entitled to be able to feed deer to get them to come there? Like, you really think you'll never see a deer on that property unless he feeds them?
But I do think he has a good point.
He has a right to do everything he can to. Well, okay, so.
Well, think about our hunting land in the mountain. We have, 40, 50 acres?
Mm-hmm.
And we put cameras up and constantly checked them from July to hunting season. And we had the same deer coming through there, clearly. Like, it never changed.
Yeah.
The same deer, same bear. And that mountain is just, like, endless. Like, there's people with land right next to us that we know kill 12-pointers.
Yeah.
But they do not come on, we only see what we had on camera. Like, there's not huge deer coming onto our land. So does that mean, like, those deer stick to those plots? I mean, we're not really that experienced, but from our experience, that's what we know.
Yeah. Make a good point. I guess the biggest thing I could oppose against the hunter, the guy that was in the article, would be that you don't have to necessarily feed deer with corn. You could
Plant soybeans.
You could throw and grow. You could grow corn. Like, you could do stuff more naturally than just put out corn. It might be a little bit more work, but
if he wants a deer that bad and he's going to go in the newspaper to complain, then
he can
plant some soybeans.
My argument to the dude would be deer will come on your property, especially during the rut. Like, my sister-in-law just hit a deer yesterday and totaled her car. So, like, deer are literally everywhere. I am going to William and Mary now, and I'm in Williamsburg, which is more urban than what I'm used to. And there is deer everywhere. Like, I just saw a 10-pointer bedded down right beside the road going to school the other morning. And it's like, they're everywhere. I think deer are, well, this is 14 years later from when this article was written. But still, like,
so
I think they're becoming a problem, especially in more populated areas, because people around here, the vibe I get is they don't hunt. So there's just deer everywhere.
Well, that's very interesting. Did you know now in private land you can kill 2 deer a day?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
in Virginia, by the way, guys.
In Virginia,
we're in Virginia.
You can kill 2 deer a day now on private land. I think that the law is really against hunters, in my opinion, when it comes to like seasons and limits and all kinds of stuff. There's deer all over the place, and I feel like there's very strict laws. You know, in some places now in Virginia, there's a 4-week rifle season. Floyd County has a 4-week. Floyd has a 4-week rifle season. I think that's a good thing. I know there's all kinds of deer at my house. There's deer everywhere, and there's tons of them. And we've been so limited on how many, like how much you can hunt, and how many you can harvest. And I understand like the reasons behind it. But if you control a population enough and like restrict it enough, it'll eventually grow and become a problem. You know?
But to both your points, like, You're right, and I agree. Deer are everywhere this year. But we have went hunting every single weekend.
Yeah, but
And we have yet to see a deer while we were hunting.
there's different reasons for us not seeing deer. Well, one reason was we had Jared one time, so that's an automatic no deer.
That's
What?
true. The dude had 2 Mountain Dews before it got daylight.
Diet. Point that out.
Caffeine.
Not sugar.
He's
Not
addicted.
sugar.
He's addicted. But I mean,
Dude,
I don't know why we don't see any when we hunt.
I'm about the
They're
coffee
literally
now.
everywhere.
Now get this. Y'all will like this. I wasn't going to read this point yet because I wanted to save it until our conversation kind of died down a little bit. But Alan Easterly of Stafford, Virginia agrees, saying that it doesn't make sense to plant 10 apple trees to feed the deer as opposed to buying apples from 10 trees and depositing them for the deer to feed on.
Repeat
So-
that again?
So basically he's saying there's no difference between having a tree there with apples versus putting the apples on the ground for the deer to eat.
Yeah, but you can't limit somebody for having apple trees on their land.
No. But what he's saying is,
What's the difference?
He's saying it doesn't matter if they're being fed because there could just be an apple tree there anyway.
True.
I mean, that works very good with apples.
And
That
then,
works very well with.
and then here a similar
Piles
point.
of corn on the ground.
A similar.
cornfields have you seen?
Sorry.
Nothing with just corn on the ground.
Well, deer will eat through the cobs and whatnot.
A similar point was made by Mike Purdue, it says, of Bent Mountain, excuse me. He says, in my opinion, hunting over bait is no different than hunting in an area where the acorns and hickory nuts cover the ground.
It's true.
But
don't
Except
know.
for it's man-made.
yeah, then to VGDIF's point, like Jared was saying, you also got to think the apples you buy from the store have had a lot done to them. Like as far as pesticides, they were grown on a farm, they were shipped, they might have been froze. I can see their point behind that. It's not really a apple that's grown in the woods, so it does have a better chance of maybe carrying disease or just being changing the genetics of the animal kind of adaptation.
Yeah.
And then to another point on the other side, a hunter said, I've been an avid hunter for over 20 years and I only know of one reason for using artificial feeders for deer, drawing them into a shooting zone. Let's see. Yeah, and someone said basically there's no scientific evidence that feeding is even necessary for survival of deer. Well, duh. That would be my answer to him.
Duh.
I mean,
Quote Jared
yeah.
Tuck. Duh.
Duh.
But even after, say we move on from that point of whether it actually hurts the deer population or not, because it's being done in places,
Yeah.
and it's working incredibly. They are harvesting crazy good deer 24/7.
They're healthy. And
There's places that it's illegal, and the deer are still fine. There's still big deer around here.
oh,
I
yeah.
mean, not like there are in maybe other places, but there's still big deer around here.
Right.
But
And that's not because of feeding. It's just because of, natural processes
right,
anyway.
and that's what I'm saying. So to each his own. Either way, nothing's proven to be completely terrible or completely OP.
Yeah.
So that comes to the question: minus good or bad for the deer themselves, is it wrong? Is it cheating?
Ethically speaking?
Is it going to a stocked pond with 1 million bass and throwing a frog with a sinker on it and catching one?
No,
I
I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's the same.
I have
cheating?
noticed, I think that's what's weird about hunting that I've learned. So, people who, go on these... Alright, so people who kill huge deer, and it's because they feed the deer, it's because they have huge properties,
So
it's
that makes
because...
us good at hunting.
Yeah, but basically they do everything they can, which makes them good at hunting, and that's like how people view it when it comes to hunting. But if you did that in fishing, it would be like not cool at all, you know? Like if you wanted to be the best fisherman, you would just have a huge pond and just stock it with giant bass and just catch them every day.
Yeah,
like,
but you're not really putting the deer there like you would be putting the bass there. Like,
yeah, but if you're attracting them with bait, I guess you sort of are.
yeah.
Okay, you're good. Say sorry, guys.
Sorry, guys. We had some traffic.
We got some simple-mindedness going on.
some
Sorry,
slight
guys.
simple-mindedness
We
on
had
Jared. The
some
lawyer's
technical difficulties there. So, I guess I don't even remember what we were saying, but basically, we were talking about is it right to do that, to hunt over bait, and I don't know the answer to that question, but it's something worth talking about.
Keep going.
Keep going. What's going on that side, boys?
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry.
Are y'all eating? What's going on? Do I have to just keep talking here to keep these people entertained?
Maybe.
All
Till we
right.
finish this handful
So
of
I
trouble.
guess my final point would be maybe it's not fully okay. I think there's always an ethical question for anything you do, no matter what, whether that be hunting or just life in general. But my point about this as a whole, as far as like the morals and ethics are different. But anyway, just the whole whatever moral and ethical question. My answer to it would be hunting over bait might be a bad thing to do, and it may not be moral. But what is less moral or less ethical? I get those two confused. But it would be the way that domesticated animals are treated now, as far as like, you know, the beef you buy in a store, or, you know, like these cows are just being fed a ridiculous amount of food in a day, and they get to walk 2 steps in their whole life, basically. They just stand in one spot until they eat so much until they're huge, and then they get killed, and then they turn into meat.
You're in law school. What's that called? When you answer a question by posing
A new question?
just like you just did, because you didn't answer the question, you kind of redirected it to make us think of another issue that's not as bad, or that's worse.
Right.
Hey, you're just playing mind games with all our
No,
five listeners.
I guess that, I mean, I don't have an answer to it. I mean, it may not be morally right to feed deer, but I would say a lot of our ancestors did that too. I mean, say you killed an animal back in the day and you wanted to attract other animals, like, you know, put out scraps to see if a bear would come, and then you kill the bear, and then you have more food for your family. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that humans do. Like, is it right to kill animals in general? I mean, we have people nowadays saying no, that's not right. So is it right to kill plants? Plants are life too. So no matter what, we got to kill something in order to live, or else we would be dead. And
You're right.
And so, I mean, it's just like philosophy, but yeah.
I think. I don't know. I'm mixed on it too, because, like, here in Virginia, just everything you know about it, it kind of seems just kind of unethical, moral. Like, it just doesn't seem right to do it. First
Actually,
of all,
I have a hard point of view on it. I think you should be able to hunt over bait. Jared makes a very good point about how the way we treat our, like, livestock in general, we just grow them to kill them. How is it if anything, there's still a better chance of that deer walking away than it is the cows living.
Right.
You know?
So,
And you know what I use my deer meat for? Burger.
mhm.
Hunter and I do not trophy hunt. So every bit of we can't trophy hunt. Well, we don't trophy hunt. Every bit of the deer that we kill We try to save everything. And so how is it any different for me to bait a deer to put food on the table than it is for somebody to go out and raise cattle?
But nobody ever said raising cattle was good.
Yeah, but there's laws against baiting deer, and there's not laws against raising cattle.
Well, yeah, sure, yeah.
Is there?
I mean,
Jared?
I'm sure there's some kind of regulations, but like, yeah, I'm sure farmers would
Not to what we're
beg
talking
to
about.
differ
No,
with
if
you.
I wanted to go to the market and buy a cow and come home and shoot it in the head, I could do that.
Yeah, you can basically feed your cow whatever, I think, unless it's like, you know, some harmful thing that might kill people, you know. I don't know. I'm not a farmer, but you can basically feed your cow as much as you want. Like, you can literally feed it until it dies of obesity, I'm sure. And that's probably what they do.
So, I mean, how is it any different than that?
I don't think it is. I think
Deer still have fair chance
if
to get away.
if you're a person who says don't bait deer because that's not right and that's not moral, you're a hypocrite if you go to a supermarket and buy your New York strips. I mean,
Or turkey for Thanksgiving.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. So
Your eggs.
there's always going to be a moral or ethical problem with everything. That's just Jared's point of view.
And you know, I don't want to get too political with it, but you know why I feel like there's more like there's a hunting law against baiting deer is because there's a hunting minority. I feel like it's easier to put like a law on something that doesn't affect a lot of people. Like,
I don't know. A lot of people hunt, I feel like.
No, numbers of one thing I've learned, because I've been doing a lot of work and like that kind of stuff recently and getting involved in like a lot of that. Hunting numbers have declined terribly, like over just in general over the past years.
Shout out
Like
Virginia for
numbers
the
are
$100
way down.
hunting license.
But the only reason the hunting license have ever went up is because less people buy them.
Yeah,
So
you gotta have more
if,
money.
if you need $1,000 a year
Yep.
and you're selling them $10 a piece, and you have 70 less people buy them this year, next year you gotta raise the prices.
Yeah.
And that's basically why stuff's going up. I mean, besides like inflation and yada yada, but like the numbers are just down. And like the approval for hunting rate's down. Like everything to do with hunting is negative right now. Like the people that believe in it, the people that want to do it, the people that want to.
You get demonetized on YouTube too.
Yeah.
You
Thanks,
can.
YouTube.
Yeah. Thanks, YouTube.
Jared, what were you telling me were you telling it to Hunter and I the other day on the podcast, or were you telling it to us just talking to us on the phone about that one girl in law school that just could not believe people fish?
Was it fish?
Or
Was it hunt?
no, I think it was fish,
I
right?
think it was fishing. She asked you if a lot of people did that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, from our area,
Yeah. She was like, that's a thing, like, people fish. Like, I told her that I really liked fishing and stuff, and she saw me, like, in the Facebook class page, because we have, like, our own class page for our, you know, class. And everybody, like, knows me as the person who fishes because my Facebook photo used to be, it's not anymore, but, like, I was just holding up a big smallmouth. And I have a lot of fishing pictures and like YouTube stuff on my Facebook, so I guess people saw that and some of my posts and stuff. And she was like, so you have, and I told her about my YouTube channel, and she's like, so it's all about fishing. And she was like asking me where I was from and stuff, and I told her I was from Southwest Virginia, and she's like, I'm not really familiar, but whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. Well, and then somehow we got to talking about fishing more, and she was like, people fish in your area? Like, is that a common thing for people to go fishing? And I was like, yeah, like, yes. I don't know many people who don't either hunt or fish. And she was like, really? And it's cool to talk to people like that because they're just from such a different world. Because, or, I mean, same world, but like, it's like they're whole entire life that they've lived has just been so different from mine, and we can just learn so much from each other. But they just like, I don't know, it's weird to me that she doesn't know anybody who fishes or hunts, because I just know everybody who has. Or at least, and I told her, I was like, yeah, most of the people, I said, I don't know many people who don't either hunt or fish unless they're female. It just typically is male dominated. But I was like, yeah, it's very common. I mean, everybody hunts or fishes. And she was like, that's crazy. Like, that's so weird. And I was like, really?
Yeah, that's one thing a lot of programs now I know are like trying to get back into that, which is like basically just promoting the sport, especially hunting. Fishing numbers, like from what I know, they're not really down. They're just not like
no,
up.
they're up.
Yeah, but hunting numbers are definitely down. Shooting's down. Like it's just like a declining sport at the moment.
The connotation, all right. The connotation around hunting is there's firearms involved, so that's negative. There's taking a life involved. That's also negative. Fishing, you don't have to kill anything. You know?
Right.
Hunting's also looked at as like you go shoot something for trophy.
Which, in some cases, there's bad in every situation.
In all fairness, there is a lot of people that trophy hunt. And if that's what they think, then that's cool with them. That's cool. But a lot of, like, people don't view hunting as something to go get meat. They don't view it as a trip to the grocery store.
And that's what it is. At least I know for us,
a lot of
most people we know
around
is like they would never kill a deer and not use it. And if they didn't need the meat, they would find somebody that did and give it to them.
I know people that give deer away.
It's the bad apples. It's the bad apples that ruin all of these hobbies. Like, it's the bad apples. It's the dude out there who goes to a pond and they get permission from their friend who knows somebody, so they go fish the pond and then they leave all their stupid trash behind, and so that landowner never lets a kid ever fish their pond ever again.
Hurt him. Hurt him.
Jared, do we need to talk about something?
And then,
you okay?
And then, no, I'm going on a rant here. And then, same thing with hunting. It's that one dude who cuts the head off of a deer, takes the antlers, and then throws the carcass on the side of the road. That's what ruins hunting for everyone else.
Didn't you find that twice while fishing?
Yes, I did.
In your old videos, I remember you posting a video about it.
It's those people who ruin the sport for everybody. They ruin the sport for everybody. And it's just frustrating because hunting and fishing aren't that bad. I think they're a good thing in a lot of ways. And I think that like younger people especially can just learn so much about life in general from hunting and fishing. And I think it's a good thing in a lot of ways. But it's not a good thing to nobody out there that I know that's like a half decent person would say it's a good thing to cut a deer's head off and then just take its antlers and put them on the wall and just throw the meat away, or just go litter a pond up. Like nobody's does that I know, but people do it, and it ruins it for all of us.
So make sure you take someone outdoors, but
take
don't be
someone
the bad
outdoors.
apple. Make your own moral, ethical decisions. Like to each his own, but don't be the bad apple. You can have your own beliefs on certain things, but don't ruin it for everybody else. That's kind of my main takeaway. I don't know what
I'd have to
Elliot
agree.
and Jared want to say
Plus
at the
one.
end, but
don't ruin it for everyone else.
It's basically the podcast for tonight. I mean,
yeah, guys,
we really stayed to one topic. I mean, it was a pretty good topic though. We talked about it for a while.
Yeah.
So
tell us what you think.
Comment and let us know.
Yeah.
Like, what do you guys think? Is it moral? Is it ethical? Is it wrong? Is it right? Should it matter? Like, who cares? Like, let us know your opinions down below. Oh, and DM one of us and send us your address, and we'll hook you up with one of these nice wristbands that I'm wearing. That's right. Jared's not wearing. Yeah, I'm not photoshopping. You can't even see me right now, but yeah, you're not photoshopping it in again. But anyway, we'll hook you up with a wristband. Just send us your address over DM. We're not going to send it out to anyone else. We're just going to send you a wristband. So, yeah. All right, who's got the outro? Hit it, Elliot.
Just We'll see you guys next time and take someone outdoors.
Hey.